is nothing wrong with your radio.
Do not attempt to adjust the volume.
We are controlling the broadcast.
For the next hour we will control all that you hear.
You are about to experience the knowledge and insights of the media mothership.
Wow, great timing here on Edge Radio 99.3 FM. We're on. This is Media Mothership for another week with everything in and around the world of media and popular culture and bizarre oddities such as this show in itself.
Wow.
There we go.
Wow.
And there
wow.
we go.
Hi.
Yes, so I'm Craig.
I'm Taylor.
And we look at how media shapes some of the understandings of how we see the world around us. We are streaming on the DAB and
Twitch,
YouTube. So you can come and send us a message on the chat on Twitch and YouTube, or directly into the studio on 0488 11707. And this, I think we're at episode 103. I'll have to check 104, 103, 104. Last week we looked at video games and save scumming, which I have even upped my ante on last week. Last week I thought it was cathartic in terms of confessing my own moments in video games where I save scum, which is where you're playing a game and you think you're about to do something really tricky. Mm-hmm. So it could be in The Witcher or Baldur's Gate, where you know you're about to have a random number generator occur, right? So you might do it. You got 60% chance of doing it, or 80%, and you're thinking, just in case I'm going to save it, and you fail, and you go, oh, okay, I'm just going to go back to the save file, and you keep doing that until you get perfectly. Anyway, I've really done more of it since that show. I'm currently actually, so I've been playing Crusader Kings 3, where you can play as a ruler, a king, a vassal, a duke, from the 800s to the 1400s. So it's all the medieval period. And currently I'm playing as the Insular Irish duke. And because they have polygamy at this age of the game, the Insular Irish allows them to have polygamy. I've got 4 wives. And I'm trying to min-max my wives through save scumming by doing a romance scheme on my main wife, and then which can cause a that's probably my wife now messaging me saying what? It's just a video game, honey. So if you romance your wife, you can get a soulmate through that, which gives you various perks. But because I've got 3 other wives, I'm also trying to romance them, and it brings up these mini quests where you're having to, like one of them is, how do I impress my wife? Do I duel one of my army officers? Do I write her a sonnet? Do I, buy her something expensive? So you got all these choices, and they're all based on your stats, and I save before each one of those choices. Anyway, and then I'm trying to seduce my other 3 wives, but that lowers my approval of my main wife. So I'm also doing that, but then I'm trying to seduce them to become my lovers as well in the game, which causes me to do more save scumming to get this ideal. And basically, I realize it's a cult. By the end of it, I'm thinking, this is just a cult. Anyway, so since then, if we get around to it, we might talk about rage quitting as the other side of this discussion. But before we do that, do you have any thoughts about your own save scumming experience since last week?
No, I haven't played any games since last week.
Right. Life has been your game.
Yes,
exactly. Playing the game of life. Do you often think about save scumming games? I play board games once a week with a group of friends, and I was explaining my obsessive save scumming behavior. And I said, that's why I struggle playing board games, because I want to save scum my moves, and I can't get everyone to go back 2 moves in the board game to allow me to do it again, because I didn't like how it turned out. So what it creates in me is a procrastination behavior, where each one of my turns takes enough time that people scream at me.
And what sort of board games are they?
Last week it was it's a German city builder game where you're basically building your city based on various amenities.
Mm-hmm.
I completely forget the name of it now. I've got it on my mobile. In fact, it's got a mobile version, which I'm hoping will leap out at me, but won't. Yeah, that one. Yeah, so mainly heavy Euro games.
Okay.
Right, games which don't have much random game generating. Yeah. All right, so let's talk about some news.
Okay.
First article I want to talk about is Ark Survival Evolved. Have you ever played Ark Survival Evolved?
There's only been one, hasn't there, so far?
Well, this is part of the conspiracy, the debate around it.
Mm-hmm.
They'd had one game, and then they kind of relaunched it with a better operating system, so you had to buy it again.
Because I know played Ark, and I think the graphics were so bad that I played it for about 10 minutes and then stopped.
Well, I'll play a little clip. This is this is a reaction to their latest trailer. The latest trailer is getting a lot of flack. Basically, it's an open world survival game where you're training dinosaurs and you're crafting knives and
sounds like the first one, yeah.
There's been a backlash to the
saying this project has nothing to do with us. So I'll be reacting to both. Hi guys, Steve here. To celebrate Ark's 10th birthday anniversary, Snail Games, the publisher of Ark, released a trailer for a new paid DLC map for Ark Survival Evolved. Not Survival Ascended, which I first thought, but Evolved. It didn't go very well, so they released another trailer that went even worse. Studio Wildcard even put out a statement saying this project has nothing to do with us. So I'll be reacting to both trailers and tell you what I think. So
basically, these trailers are for the old version of the game as well, which is called controversy. The main controversy, though, is our favorite topic, which is AI-generated content.
Oh, yes, okay.
So it seems that people have quickly pointed out that this expensive game has, as the Kotaku article puts it, Snail Game gets slammed for using AI slop to debut Ark Aquatica expansion. So they've basically ripped into it as looking like cheap CGI footage stitched together with contextless scenes, and it's just getting a lot of hate. And a couple of companies have fallen into this trap of using AI, and then the forensic fandom. One of my favorite theories, the forensic fandom theory, that fans will have quite a lot of fun dissecting popular culture. And one of the current forensic fandom, I guess, investigations, queries, CSI, skill sets is AI forensic. Like finding AI in popular culture, particularly that kind of gotcha moment of saying, we've gotcha game for using AI when you shouldn't have because it looks crap. It could be the six fingers giveaway. This one just seems to be problematic because it's so we'll play there on the screen soon. Yeah. I mean, I played this.
Ark has brought you 10 years of unforgettable adventure. All of those journeys, those fights for survival, have been leading to this. Are you ready? A whole new world is waiting.
It might have been that I was playing very old. And so I had it down at minimum.
And that's the criticism I have a little bit is that it's never really. But yeah, you can kind of see. I mean, there you go. That's the latest controversy controversy there, the AI slop. The other little thing to talk about is some news Helldivers is getting. Have you heard of Helldivers? Do you know anything about?
No, I haven't heard of that at all. No.
Well, to put us in the zone, I'll play the trailer for it in mere seconds. So this is the cinematic intro. Now, the thing to know about Helldivers is it's a co-op, team-based PvE, player versus environment shooter.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Right, where you've got you're kind of playing in the world similar to Starship Troopers, right? So it's a sci-fi world where you're in these kind of army uniforms,
Are they
high-tech army
underwater?
uniforms. No, it's all above water, on land, and you're basically eradicating these hostile enemies, but you're in a kind of dictatorship environment that you're playing the game in. But like Starship Troopers, it's a kind of satire of fascism and political totalitarianism. So it's the cinematic that I'll play at the moment is a kind of in-universe recruitment ad for joining the Helldivers in this dystopic totalitarian future Earth, which is masquerading as a democracy, but it's referred to as a managed democracy because it's basically a totalitarian regime. So here we go. We'll listen to the cinematic opening for Helldivers.
Important decision of your life.
There we go.
Super Earth, our home. Prosperity. Liberty. Hi there. Democracy. Our way of life. Oh, hello. But freedom doesn't come free. No! Sweet liberty! No! Look familiar? Scenes like these are happening all over the galaxy right now. You could be next. That is, unless you make the most important decision of your life. Prove to yourself that you have the strength and the courage to be free. Join the Helldivers. Become part of an elite peacekeeping force. See exotic new life forms. And spread managed democracy throughout the galaxy. Become a hero. Become a legend. Become a Helldiver.
All right, so that's the Helldivers trailer, and as you can pick up there, it's quite a satire of
America.
This kind of military-industrial complex that's turned very dark with a kind of managed democracy. From what I understand, in
America.
Well, the managed democracy is computer-based, where it predetermines what your vote's going to be based on your algorithm. Right? It's like a kind of, if Amazon and algorithms were running the government as well, that it just says, based on your shopping history, you vote this way. So this is the government. You've got something like that. Anyway, I came across a really fun article, interesting article in Rock Paper Shotgun about Helldivers, talking how the UN has contacted the Helldivers 2 studio about giving a talk on psychological defense against manipulation. So the article goes on to talk about how this co-op bug basher, as they refer to it in the article, Helldivers 2, which is a satire on authoritarian regimes, was asked by the United Nations if they'd give a talk about psychological manipulation. Speaking at the GDC conference as part of a presentation named Helldivers 2, Capturing Lightning in a Bottle, the Yeah. I guess the idea there being that, this is a satire of glamorizing a type of army environment, right? Yeah. So it's very much that kind of. The game works satirically, much like the Starship Troopers movie, by you're showing us on the surface what looks really cool. You get all these great weapons, you get to shoot stuff, but interestingly, in the game, you're constantly dying because your weapons really often aren't as good as they need to be to take down everything, and you're constantly rebooting as another Helldiver. So you're not too worried about keeping your stats going up because basically your character is an amalgam of various recruits that are constantly dying as they're being sent to these planets to wipe out other people. So the CEO talks about how, while the game is enjoyable and entertainment, he says here, to quote him directly, "We do it all in fun and good spirits, and we actually try to get people to recognize the science of what is a totalitarian state." So they have this language of managed democracy and, inform on your fellow soldier if they're doing, illegal mind thought stuff or they're having bad thoughts. So they're going to say, if you start wearing the same uniform as everyone else and do salutes constantly, you might be in a totalitarian regime. Actually, we got a message from the UN, he says, asking if we want to talk in some form about psychological defense against manipulation.
I thought you were talking on the chat. We got a message from the UN on the chat.
They want us to talk about psychological manipulation. But it's an interesting idea when you think, I guess, about how significant propaganda is in portraying, for instance, one of the classic points about the success of propaganda for Nazi Germany was how even today many people have this propaganda image of Nazi Germany being all machinery, right? It's all tanks and high-tech weapons and so forth for its time. But actually the actual breakdown of the German military was still largely horse-based and was actually much older and not at all that impression of a well-oiled military machine that the propaganda makes you think. So similar to a game like this.
And a lot of them were actually looking for the lost Ark of the Covenant as well.
Which Indiana Jones, if he was removed, wouldn't actually have done anything to stop them anyway. So that's the interesting story on Helldivers. The other one here is Assassin's Creed. What's your thoughts about Assassin's Creed? Have you heard anything about the new Shadows?
As I said last week, I own pretty much every Assassin's Creed game, but I played maybe 6 minutes of the first one and then none of the others because I didn't like it.
All right, well, let's listen to the trailer to see what world this might evoke.
Nobukatsu and his men spare no one.
We have ways to banish such darkness. The path of the warrior is like a boundless river that begins as a stream. One warrior stands upon the battlefield, while another lives in the darkness. Driven by vengeance.
I have a debt to settle.
Bound.
All right, well, I think we get it. So it's set in feudal Japan. You can play as two different characters. Yasuke, the African samurai, which has a fascinating history to it. I was listening to an audiobook that was going over some research done on the history of the legend of Yasuke. It was a black slave bodyguard for the Jesuit missionaries during the early Sengoku period of Japan, so that's like the 15th century. And Oda Nobunaga, who was one of the head kind of daimyo, took him on as one of his loyal servants. And Yasuke, so some of the theories go, was increasingly elevated to a position of becoming a samurai himself, a feudal master. So you can play as this character or a ninja. Now, the story to go into is one that, the headline from Kotaku is Assassin's Creed Shadows addresses ongoing controversy around cultural sensitivity with Day 1 patch. Subheading, Shrines are indestructible following Japanese Prime Minister's comments. So odd that a Japanese Prime Minister's comments have led to changes in a video game. I think more broadly than that, there was a vocal community of gamers that were offended by something in the game. Have you heard about this controversy?
No, but it sounds like the shrines were able to be broken.
That's right. So you're set during Sengoku period, so it's a time of war and upheaval in Japan as it breaks into civil war. And during one of the beta games, or maybe the press release, anyway, before its release, a clip got posted in the Itate Hyozu shrine, which is a famous real shrine in Japan. It sits just outside the quite famous castle, Himeji Castle in Hyogo Prefecture. Anyway, this shrine, a clip of it was shown where you could destroy assets there. Right, so, not only just cups and tables and everything, but actually parts of the temple itself, which led to a huge controversy around a sense of disrespect. And this was on top of already amount of kind of concern that this game was politically incorrect in some other spaces, in terms of some of the lettering. The Chinese department, which had been involved in some of the graphics, from what I know, had gotten some of the wording wrong, but this was the big one. And so the day one big patch was to remove the breakability. Actually, well, let's go into the Prime Minister. So there's a piece here in the article that says, though it may have started as an online debate, the controversy surrounding the ability to deface sacred historical sites in Japan reached the upper echelons of Japanese government earlier this week. Prime Minister Ishiba was asked about the topic during a budget meeting by House of Councillors member Hiroki Kada, who represents the region where this shrine is. And according to a report by IGN, so to quote directly from the Prime Minister Ishida, he said, "I fear that allowing players to attack and destroy real-world locations in the game without permission could encourage similar behavior in real life. Shrine officials and local residents are worried about this. Of course, freedom of expression must be respected, but acts that demean local culture should be avoided." Reminds me a little bit about the Breaking Bad house, where some fans notoriously would throw the pizza on the roof in kind of homage to the scene where Walter White's character throws a pizza up in the air and it lands on the roof of this house. So yes, that defacement concern might be real. I mean, for me, one of the interesting things this made me think about. So, okay, huge controversy. They patched it, so now all you can do is break what's called the general breakable objects, so cups, saucers, and tables can still get broken because they, in the article, the developer says, they are set as general breakable items everywhere in this world, and they can get moved. But the actual temple itself can no longer be damaged or in any way defaced. It does remind me, though, like I was thinking, I guess I can totally respect that and understand it. But it reminds me of a conference I went to where there was a Japanese presenter talking about post-war Japan. It was a Japanese history conference, and he got during question time he gave this anecdote about how as a young kid he was growing up in the early post-war period of Japan, so during the American occupation, and he was recounting this story, which kind of spoke to me about aspects of you can't really tell how everyone in a culture is going to react to what's considered to be culturally insensitive. Because he was telling this story about how during the occupation force time in Japan, of course, there were a lot of outrages and cultural insensitivities done by the occupying Allied forces. But he was saying one of the things that he vividly remembers was at a shrine, these two American GIs in an army jeep suddenly came driving by, drove up the steps of the shrine and turned around into the street. And he was gobsmacked. And at first I was assuming he was going to say, and isn't that typical of the occupying, insensitive cultural damage done and how bad this kind of lack of cultural sensibility is. But instead he said it's the greatest thing he'd ever seen in his life, right? And he'd always felt that the religious system in Japan and the imperial control had too much. And this was one of those times where this whole kind of myth of power got dispelled for him, where he saw something that he'd grown up, I guess, for his personal experience in fear of, or a sense of kind of like frustration by what he saw as kind of a traditional Japanese environment. He saw it as immensely liberating, that these spaces actually aren't special and that something like this can happen to them. And I was thinking it could be the same here, right? I mean, who knows? Some people might have really horrible experiences of shrine life, and for them it's like, yes! I mean, I remember looking at video games, and there was, there was that article that I always loved coming across on Kotaku many years ago, where the dad was talking to his son who wanted to play Call of Duty, but the son was only like 13 or something, and the dad was worried about the violence, so said to the son, well, how about if we read through the Geneva Conventions together first, and then see if we can play the game together according to those conventions. And that's really clever. I mean, it's a lot of effort, and I think you'd still be able to play it. I mean, I know with Surrendering Soldiers there might be scenes which can't, but I also know there's a similar... Sorry, you're going to say something?
I was going to say, it's the whole thing about giving people the option in games, isn't it? And same with GTA. You can choose to follow the road rules or choose not to follow the road rules. You can choose to not deface a shrine, or you can choose to deface a shrine.
Yeah, and in terms of what the impact and the meaning of that is, it can change radically, right? For some people, what is it? One person's liberty is another person's jail, right? For some people, the act of defacing the... I'm not saying, again, that it's actually justifiable or in any ways... any form of violence, of course, should be one in which is not the solution.
Yeah, in a game called Assassin's Creed.
But in a game, yeah. If we're talking about in a game as well, it could be an interesting way for feelings to get kind of played through. Because I know there was another story I came across of again, this was in Kotaku many years ago, about Call of Duty, and a Jewish rabbi talking about how he'd only been able to overcome his childhood fears of this monstrous identity of the Nazi, right? So I don't think he'd grown up directly as a Holocaust survivor. I think his parents, or at least growing up, because he was older at the time he was playing this game, he was grown up with the specter of the Holocaust and the image of Nazis as these uber boogeymen. And in the article it talks about how this had actually caused him to have nightmares and to have a sense of fear for the world around him as potentially a violent, fearful environment. And it was only one of the spaces he found playing Call of Duty and shooting Nazis that he found strangely therapeutic and actually helped him work through, again, this kind of fantasy image he had of what Nazis were, to actually see them not portrayed as propaganda uber super soldiers, but instead, your dime a dozen, the villain of the day, easy to kill soldier. And I remember with Hogan's Heroes, the actors that played Colonel Klink and Schultz, both of whom I think were German by ancestry, agreed to do it only because the portrayal of the Germans was ludicrous.
Is that starring Hulk Hogan?
Not starring Hulk Hogan. Thankfully, given his political views. Hulk Hogan would not have been part of the satirical dismantling of authoritarian systems that we see there. Anyway, so that's Assassin's Creed Shadows addressing that controversy. What else? So there's one or two other odd things. An interesting one. Another Japan kind of themed one. The 47 Ronin director has been charged with $11 million fraud over the doomed Netflix sci-fi series.
I thought it was doing well.
Well, this isn't the 47 Ronin. This was his project called White Castle or something that got White Horse, right? So back in 2018, he pitched this sci-fi series called White Horse. Amazon, Apple, HBO, Hulu, Netflix, and YouTube were both in competition to secure it. Netflix got it. They gave him $44 million to develop it. It got relabeled Conquest, which seems to be the extent of the development. And then Keanu Reeves sunk all this money into it. In 2019, he said he needed more funding to develop it. They gave him $11 million more, which the story goes on to say he then spent on various, personal and speculative purchases of securities.
Speculative purchases?
Yeah. Which the article says...
What, cryptocurrency?
Exactly. Which the article says ended up winning him a huge amount of money, right? He speculated well by investing in cryptocurrency and ended up with all this money that then he blew on $4 million of furniture and antiques, $2.4 million on a Rolls Royce and a Ferrari, and then $652,000 on luxury watches.
Well, he's living the high life, isn't he?
So, now, of course, Netflix have taken him to court to try and claw back some of this money. And, what a mess. Such an insane amount of money. The headline was $11 million that they're suing him for. But then reading into it, that's on top of $44 million that he'd been given to develop it. That's what, $55 million? I think that's an inconceivable amount of money.
It is, really.
And there's nothing to show for it except for a lot of purchases.
And a name change to Conquest.
Wow, mind blown. So that's that news. What are we? We're 10 minutes to... Can we improvise something in the last 10 minutes?
Okay, yeah, sure.
Do we plug something in? Do we have the AI thing to do?
Oh yeah, we can. So I was looking through different AI things that you can do at the moment, and one of them is murder mystery.
Yeah.
So I'll read it out.
Oh, do you need? We could plug it in. Does it have audio?
No.
Oh.
because it writes it as you say it. So the scene is set in the old grand mansion of the recently deceased wealthy businessman Edward Hawthorne. Last night, during a lavish party to celebrate his 60th birthday, a power outage occurred. When the lights came back on, Edward was found dead in his study, slumped over his desk with a knife in his back. The police have sealed off the mansion while they investigate. As the detective, you must question witnesses and gather clues to solve this murder. Okay. Your first step is to interview the three prominent guests. So there's Clara, the estranged daughter of Edward, who had a tumultuous relationship with him over his insistence on controlling her life.
Yep.
Marcus, Edward's business partner, who stood to gain significant fortune upon his demise. And Lily, the mysterious family friend who had recently come back into their lives and seemed unusually interested in the family fortune. So we're going to interview Clara first.
All right, so Clara is the sister?
Is the daughter.
So close. Maybe that's the twist. It's what is it? It's a Chinatown twist. Okay.
So she's sitting in the drawing room, her face a mixture of anger and sorrow. As you enter, she looks up and says, "I can't believe he's really gone. I didn't want him dead, but I wanted him to understand my pain." You ask her about her relationship with her father and what she was doing at the time of the murder. She responds, "We had a terrible fight just before the power went out. He was so controlling. He never accepted my choices. I stormed out of the study to cool down. I didn't return until I heard the commotion after the lights came back on." So we can ask her a question. Yes. What exactly did you fight about before the murder?
Oh, so it's like a choose your own adventure.
Yeah.
We get 3 choices. Yeah.
Okay. Where were you during the blackout? And did you notice anyone else acting suspiciously?
Yeah. Let's ask if there was anyone else acting suspiciously. And so what we're doing here is we're replying to that, and then the AI will generate something.
Yeah, it's
in the
actively
moment,
writing. Yeah.
in the moments.
It's basically been told you are a choose-your-own-adventure mystery novel.
Yeah. And it keeps giving us choices to kind of railroad us down a path.
You ask Clara, did you notice anyone else acting suspiciously during the party? She furrows her brow in thought. You know, now that you mention it, I did see Marcus behaving strangely. He was pacing around the hallway, glancing at his watch like he was waiting for something, and Lily seemed overly interested in my father's business dealings. It's almost as if she was eavesdropping when they spoke. She pauses and adds, but honestly, I wouldn't put it past either of them. They both had their reasons to want him gone. Who do we interview now, Marcus or Lily?
I like how shady Marcus is. I think that...
is that the Marcus we know on the show?
This is what immediately came to my mind. Shout out Marcus. Hope you're doing well teaching.
So you decide to interview Marcus. You can find him in a dimly lit corner of the mansion, nervously tapping his foot against the floor.
Classic.
When you step closer, his eyes widen slightly.
Stunned.
Detective, I can explain everything, he stammers. I was just anxious. Edward was a tough boss, and this party felt like it was dragging on forever. You press him for details about his whereabouts during the blackout, and he hesitates before responding.
Classic.
I was in the kitchen, asking Miranda if she had seen the last of the wine.
Bullshit.
I only left the kitchen when I heard the shouting after the lights came back on. He seems rather rattled. What do we ask him? What was your relationship like with Edward? Did you notice anything unusual about the guests, or why were you so anxious during the party?
Ooh. I feel like if I wanted to turn this into a soapy, it would be why you're anxious, right? Because that will reveal...
Are we making it soapy?
Well, let's see what that happens.
Let's see what that happens. Exactly. Just generating. It's quite quick. You ask Marcus, why were you so anxious during the party? His expression shifts from nervousness to a hint of defensiveness. It's just, I had a lot on my plate lately. Edward was putting pressure on me to meet targets I wasn't sure I could handle. I thought this party would be a chance to ease the tension, but all I could think about was the work I had to do. I didn't expect something like this to happen. He looks away, shaking his head slightly. I didn't want anyone to get hurt. I swear I was just trying to keep my head above water. You notice a flicker of something in his eyes, perhaps guilt, but it's hard to tell.
Guilt.
So, do we ask if he had any conflicts with Edward recently, ask him his whereabouts during the time of the blackout, or interview another guest?
I don't want to interview another guest, so I do want to... I want to Scooby-Doo this.
Yep.
And ask about his whereabouts, and then rip his face off in the Scooby-Doo.
Okay.
It's old man Dinkum.
Okay. You decide to ask him about his whereabouts during the time of the blackout. Where exactly were you during the blackout, you inquire?
Busted.
He rubs the back of his neck, nervousness returning. As I said, I was in the kitchen with Miranda, but I stepped outside for a moment to get some fresh air. It was a bit overwhelming inside. I was out there when the lights went out. I didn't hear anything until they came back on, and I rushed inside. You take note of his alibi, but you still feel that there might be something he's withholding. Did you happen to see anyone else come out with you? I didn't notice anyone else when I stepped outside. It was just me and the night. But when I went back in, everything was chaos, he replies, looking genuinely rattled. So, let's attempt to interview Miranda next.
I want to bring in one of those forensic machines.
What's that?
Well, I can
metal detector.
Yeah. Yes.
You decide to interview Miranda next. You find her in the corner of the room, looking shaken but calm. As you approach, she seems relieved. Miranda, you start. I'd like to ask you a few questions about what happened tonight. Can you tell me where you were when the lights went out? She takes a deep breath. I was in the kitchen with Marcus. We were preparing some snacks when the lights suddenly went out. It was really disorienting. Before I could even react, I heard this loud crash, and then I got really scared. Did you see anyone in the kitchen or hear anything unusual before the blackout, you press? No, it was just us. But when the lights came back on, there was a lot of confusion. I saw Edward lying on the floor, and that's when I ran to help. Her face is pale, and it's clear that she has been affected. So now what do we do? Ask her about her relationship, inquire if she noticed any arguments. and ask her if she knows about anyone who would want to harm Edward.
I feel like our sergeant wants us to clean this case up, though.
Okay.
Right? Like, which one do you think will resolve the case?
You want to stop
like now? we have a minute left.
Okay, fine. To be continued.
All right. Well, keep listening to K-pop. We'll do some further exploration in the K-pop
world.
Back announcing.
Yeah.
Because I know this is a bit of a thing, and I found the detective background music.
Oh yeah, we've got that in the background. Yeah.
So I feel like I'm totally on board for it. So K-pop Media Mothership's going on 2-week break. We will be back in week 3 of that break period, and keep listening to Edge Radio in the meantime. This has been Craig
and Taylor
for Media Mothership. And then we'll press these buttons. Yeah, press this button first.